And I love the birds. Thank you, bird. Thank you for chirping. Cool. We got 21 people.
Okay, it looks like we are live.
Hello, New Zealand.
Okay, it
Hello,
looks like we are
Aotearoa.
live.
Hi, everybody. Hello, New Zealand.
Okay, it
Hello,
looks like we are
Aotearoa.
live.
Hi, everybody. Hello, New Zealand. Hello, Aotearoa. Hi, everybody. Somebody needs to put themselves on mute, please. Somebody needs to put themselves on mute, please. Somebody needs to put themselves on mute, please. I think his, yep. Somebody needs to put themselves on mute, please. I
If
think
you
his, yep.
if you have YouTube open in a tab, you probably just want to mute that tab.
I think,
If you have YouTube open in a tab, you probably just
right. Are we good? We should have tested this bit out first. I think the best comment I heard so far was, are we good? I think it's the reflection from you, Nani, as what Bliss said. I think it's the reflection from you, Nani, as what Bliss said.
Yeah, I think it
Okay.
might be.
Are- if we're ready, I'm gonna share, but if we're ready, I'm gonna share, but okay. Is that good? Is that good, everybody? All right. Hello, everybody. If it's good, I'm just gonna keep on going. Hello, my name is Haunani Powell. For all you new people who may have joined us today, and welcome to our last event of the year with Countdown UX team. Our theme is reflections. This is a bit of a talk about some of the work that these wonderful people have gone through and done for the year. Um, I'm really excited to have these individuals here simply because I've admired them for so long. I know they're doing great work. I know they are doing the user experience work that some of us just hope to do. And what's great about that is that the people who actually show up at Countdown get the benefit of all the thoughtful work that these individuals do, and so they are slowly going to share all this information with you. Just to share about what I am doing, and I apologize. Um, what I am sharing this time around, is this is the end of the year. And this is everything that we have done for this year. And I just want to just reflect a bit on that. You know, we came into 2021 after that horrid 2020 year, and we had some great speakers from all over the world, actually. And I really appreciate that we got to the very end, right here, to the very end with Alex, Bliss, Shira, and Michael from Countdown UX. But I thought you guys should just know that, and I'm just going to stop uh, sharing this. Um, I'm going to turn this over to, I think it's Alex's first, and in this series of lightning talks from them, and you just share your screen. Alex is fine, and just take over talking about what you were doing at Countdown. If you have any questions, please just drop them in the chat. We will be looking at it, and at the appropriate time, we will ask them questions after the end of their little lightning talk. So feel free to just do that and just sit back and relax. I think this is going to be really interesting. Thanks. Take it away, Alex.
Cool. Kia ora, everyone. For those that don't know, my name's Alex Smith, and I focus on design research and service design within the UX team at CountdownX. Prior to Countdown, I've done UX in many different places: digital agencies, startups, multinational, government, B2B, et cetera, et cetera. And they all have slightly different rhythms and variety is what I find. What I really like about UX and retail is the variety that retail offers. Not only is our team working on, the apps and websites that our customers use to shop, but also connected experiences that customers use in store, like Scan and Go, or entirely new services like our recently launched 60-minute express pickup. We also have 18,000 staff in New Zealand, and we also look after the UX for the processes, the tools, the software that our online shoppers and drivers use, not to mention the teams in our semi-automated e-stores. So today I thought I'd reflect on why I love UX research in retail with some real examples. And I really, really hope that you can take away one or two ideas and maybe apply them to your personal practice, whatever industry you're currently working in. Okay. So when we started at CountdownX, we set up a research lab when we designed our offices, and it's great. But quite often we find that we prefer to use a store as our lab. And we're lucky enough to have a store right below our office. And for things like research on customers, using things like Scan and Go, this makes a lot of sense. So we often try to make the real world our research lab. Now, I don't know if anyone on the call has used Scan and Go, but it's in some of our stores, a few of our stores. And Scan and Go involves customers basically shopping with their own device, scanning products as they shop. And it's almost like having a point of sale or a self-service checkout on your phone. So you scan the items as you go. You weigh fruit and veg on an AI scale. It uses cameras. It can recognize an apple versus an orange. It can even see through the plastic bags. And then you go and pay for the items on your phone with your credit card or FPOS card or whatever. And then you go through an unmanned checkout lane with magic gates and walk out. So very little friction. And Scan and Go has a lot of interesting UX challenges with things like signage, ergonomics of trolleys and phone holders, challenges like holding a shopping basket in one hand and a phone in the other that are all part of the experience. And it's quite a complicated experience. It involves lots of touch points and technologies that would just be too hard to simulate easily without a real store, which is why we, make the store our lab in situations like this. And while all this is happening, we stream the audio, video, the participant and what's on their phone, as well as a video of the store environment back to our office upstairs. And we try to get the whole team and stakeholders watching so everyone gets behind the research, not just a squad, but people in teams like loss prevention or marketing, we get them involved. And we even try to invite some team members from one of our nearby stores to take a few hours off and take part in the UX process so they can understand what we're doing. So lots of opportunities to use the real world as your lab, which I'm quite into. That was an example of us doing research in store. We also try to observe and interview customers where it's most natural for them. And COVID's really pushed us to experiment, with doing this more and more. And, often, getting into the homes of customers makes the most sense. So, for example, if you want to observe customers who typically shop online from the comfort of their own home, it actually kind of makes a lot of sense to watch them shopping online from their living room or their kitchen. You get a greater degree of realism and greater empathy for how customers really interact with your products. Here's a picture of a customer shopping using our app. I blurred them out, obviously, just for privacy reasons. But, when people are shopping from home, they can look in their cookbooks. They can look in their fridge to see if they're out of milk. And remote research is great for this. And the tools that we've got now are great for this as well. So, customers shopping one-handed on their phone with a crying baby in the other hand is often the reality of, customers doing an online supermarket shop. And we can really only get this kind of empathy and understanding if we're observing customers shopping from their home in their environment. Another thing we like to do is we like to try to uncover core user needs by looking at the analog. So, even if you're working on a digital experience, sometimes it pays to look at the analog or non-digital approach for some clues, around customer goals or customer needs. Simply approaching customers and asking some basic questions about something as simple as their shopping list can give you some really interesting clues. For example, what's on their shopping list? How did their family create it? How do they plan on using it? These sorts of questions about the analog can really help you learn more about your customers so you can make the right UX decisions later on when you start designing. It may also seem a bit daunting to approach customers who are shopping in store. But when they realize you have a genuine interest, they're often happy to spend a few minutes chatting with you. A bar of chocolate and maybe a $5 gift voucher goes a long way as well. But in this example, someone's shopping for a friend who can't go herself. Um, Someone's wife prepared the list and sent him to the supermarket. This one, fruit and assorted veg. It means flexibility to select well-priced veg. Um, Coffee. I'll get a bag of the coffee I like the look of. I don't really care which one. So every list has a story behind it, and those stories can help you, design a better experience. And looking at the analog can give you some of those clues. Going undercover is a really cool option. In retail, you can even put on a uniform and interact with customers to get a feel for any questions or concerns they might have. A good example of this was during the early days of COVID. We wanted to trial some different approaches to queue management, including the ways to join a queue using your mobile phone and wait in your car to stay safe and socially distanced. Now, to test queuing, you really need a lot of people, and they really need to come and go in unpredictable ways with peaks and troughs. And we didn't really have the time or any practical way to prototype or simulate this like we would, a typical, design prototype in a digital context, because this is, very real world and very physical. So we decided, the best way to try this out would be to trial in a real store with real live customers before rolling out further and, treat it as a test and learn. And in this situation, a customer wouldn't really want you coming up with a clipboard and chocolates and saying, would you like to take part in some research? So I had to be a little bit creative about getting feedback on how to do queuing. And I thought undercover was probably the way to go. So we got a team and we went into the store early. We had a very cross-functional team. We had some fairly senior people who wouldn't normally be in the store all week. Marketing, IT, front-end dev, and we were there basically to test and learn and make changes very quickly. We observed what was happening with how things were working, and to get customer insights, I spent a fair chunk of time working alongside the frontline team at the door, helping them manage the inflow of customers, explaining the check-in process, including how to scan QR codes and answering all kinds of random questions. The customers would have just thought I worked in the store. And you can see a small sign and flyer in the window day one. We quickly realized that wasn't enough to get customers doing what we wanted them to do. So we quickly iterated. And as a UX researcher, I could use these little micro conversations and interactions with customers to understand concerns or frustrations and rapidly work out what changes we needed to make. And each day we made changes and tried different approaches, and it was really good. And as you talk to customers, the questions that they have pop up, which is really interesting. Day two, we tried some bigger signs in the car park as one of our changes. Day three, we went large. We got some video screens with instructions to see if that would work a little bit better. We even trialed playing around with the instructions throughout the day and changing them. The developer that I showed you, that was there, he was uploading changes from his laptop in his car in the store and making changes very quickly based on the insight we were getting from customers. So I'd encourage you, for certain things to go undercover and dress up like one of your team members and work with them and get feedback that way if it makes sense. Cool. The other thing I like about doing UX in retail is you can involve the store team in your UX to stay honest. Now, I think a lot of you guys this might look familiar. Probably a lot of you guys have seen this message, and it's really a frustrating message to see. And a while back, we were having a lot of trouble with our self-service checkouts and customers that were kind of resorting to workarounds like this. I don't know if anyone did anything like this, but this is a real photo I took while observing customers using our checkouts. And I observed lots of examples of weird workarounds and frictions like this. And the problem at the time was that these checkouts just weren't designed for customers bringing reusable bags, and the government had just rolled out, a ban on plastic bags. So to solve this problem, we spent a lot of time in store observing people checking out and interviewing them afterwards. But we also spent a lot of time talking to our team members about this. We interviewed them about the problem from their perspective, the people on the front line, and we tried to find out what they felt the problems were from their perspectives and what they thought we could do to make it better. And, these guys are great. They're always happy to help us out. Going in, having a bit of a chat, doing a bit of an interview, filming and recording and bringing it back to the team is great. Great way to go for problems like this. We also even arranged to get some of the team that usually work in store to come into workshops and take part in the UX process to help us figure out how to solve the problem. So we had some of the customer service team that works in the self-service checkouts doing design, and came in for a design sprint for a week. We flew a couple of them into Auckland and they helped us out. We got a much better outcome because we had a frontline perspective present in our thinking. Cool. So that's really what I wanted to cover. Hopefully that'll give everyone a little bit of a peek behind the scenes at Countdown and how we approach UX research. And I really hope that this has given everyone maybe just an idea or two that you can maybe apply to your UX practice in whatever industry you work in. Cool. Any questions from the floor? Happy to answer a few if we've got a minute or two.
Hey there. I wanted to say there was a lot of people when you were talking about showing the analog version was a lot of preach, a lot of praise for that, for thinking in that way. I was wondering, how did you guys come up with that idea that you start looking at, people's shopping lists as part of your process?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to we basically follow the double diamond methodology, and as probably a lot of other companies do, and a lot of people on this call are probably familiar with. And as part of our discovery phase, we try to uncover insights and things that might help us design. And so that kind of came out of our discovery process essentially, and often we try to understand, the current way people do things, whether that's digital or analog or, a process or whatever it might be. And for something like that, it made a lot of sense to try to look at paper shopping lists because we wanted to understand how people use them, but also if we did anything digital with shopping lists, the competition would be paper, right, as well as other
Right.
digital products. So we wanted to make sure we understood the strengths and weaknesses of the status quo, essentially.
Right. Right on. Thank you. We actually have a question from Jane Williams. Roughly, what percentage of your assumptions are proved true when you go into the field?
Oh, that's a really good one. I've got no idea, and it'd be really interesting to track that and see how you do over time because I have absolutely no idea. But I would say probably a fair chunk of the time we disprove assumptions and I think that's really good. Sometimes um, killing off bad ideas or killing off ideas that we're assuming the wrong thing is really important. Sometimes what you don't do is just as important as what you do.
Hmm. Righto. Yep. Another question I have is when you said you dressed up like your other colleagues that are in the store, and can you just go over a little bit about how did you get people to talk to you, and how did you have to change how we normally do UX
Yeah,
research
yeah.
with plying with chocolates? Like how did you get that going?
Well, I mean, there's two different approaches. So when we do intercepts, we'll get people that are, I don't know, going through the frozen food section or the fruit and veg section, and we'll run that as proper research with a short NDA and consent form, and say, hey, we've got a $10 voucher if you're willing to talk to us for 5 minutes about X or Y or Z, and that's a really good, quick, and cheap way to talk to a lot of people very quickly. So that's kind of one approach we use. The other approach we do use, which I had to kind of be creative about really during that COVID situation, was if you're helping the manager out or the person working in the front line, it's not really a formal interview or formal research like we would normally do. It's more you're showing someone how to do something, or you're asking the customer to check in with a thing on their phone. So by just telling them or explaining them what they need to do, you can listen to the questions they have. And so by just kind of helping out with the queue management and the line by hearing the questions customers had and the concerns, or even a few that had really severe pushback, you could kind of understand what they needed to know and what we needed to do to kind of get them across the line. So it's really just by kind of just putting two and two together, I guess.
Well, there's a couple more questions from that. One is from Ian saying, were most of the customers in the store happy to participate in the research? And one from Stephanie saying, asking, what was the most challenging part of doing research in the field?
Well, hang on. I've got a one-track mind. What was the first one again?
First one was, were most of the customers in the store happy to participate in the research?
Yeah, it's interesting because when you're in the supermarket, you kind of don't expect people to come up to you and approach you, and you have to kind of really get your approach down really
Mm.
well and kind of practice and rehearse that. So there's definitely an art to doing it, and a few of us have kind of gotten good at it over time. But I think once people realize that you're genuine and that you're just want to understand them, they're usually pretty good about it. And if you've got a $10 voucher or some chocolate or something, then that helps quite a bit as well. And if
So
you
you
make it
do
very
give a
clear, it's
little
only
money.
going to
Good.
take a couple of minutes. Yeah, definitely.
Oh, good.
What was the second one? Sorry.
The second one was, what was the most challenging part of doing research in the field?
I don't know. I love it. I love doing research in the field. It's really immersive. You can take lots of photos. You can see what's going on. But I think it's probably like if you're doing it like a live working supermarket, it's not a very controlled environment like a research lab. I mean, that's kind of where I learned the craft when I started out, was doing stuff in a very controlled environment like a research lab. But in a supermarket, anything can happen. Anyone can come up, people can get in your way. A neighbor of mine spotted me and came up while I was filming, and kind of jumped in and caused a bit of distraction and things like that. But you kind of just have to roll with it and just not worry about it too much. Also, the technology, 4G and 4G connection can be quite patchy in stores. With all of the shelves that you've got and many rows of shelves, getting signal into the middle of the store can be quite difficult sometimes. So that can be very challenging as well. So you have to kind of pick your stores wisely and walk around doing speed tests in different aisles and things like that to get set up. So you have to kind of think things through very carefully and kind of expect some failures along the way as well.
Fair enough. I have two more questions, then we're going to move on. One is from Jeff Wilson Comedy. Who at Countdown helps your team's champion getting these initiatives funded and prioritized, etc.? Thinking top down. And he asked another question, but I'm going to ignore it. Sorry, Jeff. And then Yamu B, pardon me, asked, how many customers are asked in the supermarket and then come to these insights? So I guess the thing is about how many insights do you find from the number of people that you're talking to?
Yeah, really good questions. Both those. First of all, so how many customers? It really depends on what we're doing. Sometimes we go for a much larger number of customers, with qualitative stuff, often 7, 8, 12 people, that kind of thing. It kind of depends also on how many different perspectives we want to get as well.
Yeah, that's good.
So sometimes if there's 2 different groups or a few different versions we want to try out, we'll double it or triple it. So it really just kind of depends, but we're quite pragmatic. We kind of prioritize doing more waves of research or more rounds of research with iteration, rather than doing huge numbers, because we find that you can, you get the biggest things come out very quickly anyway. When we intercept in store, the same kind of thing as well. It kind of just depends on what we're trying to find out. If we're doing shorter things that are just 5 minutes, we might do more of them just because the time isn't swallowed up as easily. So we're just kind of pragmatic and flexible, really, and we have a lot of different things we can be working on, so we have to kind of prioritize the most important things as well. As far as funding, we have a pretty reasonably customer focused organization, and I've never really had any trouble getting funding to do research. If I want to do research, I can pretty much just we can pretty much just do it on things. So we haven't really had to do too much work convincing people we need to do this. But as far as funding for initiatives and projects in a wider sense, that's a whole nother conversation. And we, I probably don't want to get into that too much, just because it's
Fair
complicated.
enough. I have to say, I think if your customer, if your business values customer feedback, or values the experience that that customer goes through, that I can imagine it is opens up opportunity to be more experimental, to try new things out, and to do anything that's on the focus of giving your customer the best experience they can have. So, anyway, thank you, Alex. I guess if you have any more questions, you can find him on the bus, and you can definitely bore everybody on the bus with the
Yeah,
amazing work that he's been
yeah.
doing. Thank you so much, Alex. You're always one of my favorite people to talk about this, because you use the process, you use the research process to actually get some stuff done, and I think that's what we need to be reminded of all the time as UXers, that research is really important. People are really important to actually design the right thing. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks,
Let's move on
guys.
to the next person. Is that you, Bliss? It is Bliss.
Yep.
Okay, Bliss, take it away.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks, Alex, for that great talk. That was really good. And I'm just gonna have the burden, Alex, with clicking through the slides for me this time around. Yeah, hi everyone. Thanks for joining us today. Yep, my name is Bliss, and just to give you a little bit of a background, so I've been with Countdown for like a year. Started last November, if I'm correct. Yeah, and it's just been an interesting year. It's a lot of challenges, like Alex has said, and hope everyone has had a good year so far as well. So if you can just move on to the next slide, Alex, please. Yep, so on to sort of what I want to share today. A little bit of a brief reflection of my time at Countdown. So I'll be talking about my journey as I work through applying sort of like a UX lens to emails in particular. And it's an interesting one because I haven't really heard of a lot of places having a particular one designer for UX in an email space. So that was quite interesting. And just sort of some of the key insights and lessons that I've taken through this experience. And I hope that it'll help you just as you're doing your things and designing and all that kind of stuff. So if you can move on to the next slide as well. Yeah, just starting us off. When I joined Countdown, so like I mentioned, I was in a squad that looked after email communications. I had an idea of the work that would be involved in the email space because, I had a brief sort of envelopment to it in my previous jobs. But I'd also be lying if I said I knew exactly what I was getting into 100%. I knew the exact complexity of it and everything. So I wasn't sure how complicated it could be. In hindsight, I think I definitely sort of underestimated some of the smarts behind it, the complexity in the email space and all of that. But that also meant that I sunk just really quickly into the nitty-gritty of what made emails at Countdown tick. So for a bit of context into the email world at Countdown, some of you might have received, like your weekly emails and all that kind of stuff. But behind all of that, really, our emails tend to use sort of like data from customers so that we can give them sort of, or you guys really, relevant messages at the right time. So this can include things from products, recipes, specials, everything that you would see in that email has data behind it, really. So if your email shows up with like tons of cat food or something like that, it's mainly because we know you spoil your cat, you've bought a lot of it. If you're offered a recipe on chicken soup, for example, it's because we think you like chicken and maybe it's on special and stuff like that. So there's just a lot of smarts going on behind it. Did take me quite a while to sort of get my brain around it as well. So yeah, just sunk into it, trying to figure out what the limitations were, what made things work, so on and so forth. And so at the end of it, I definitely sort of had like a goal in mind to make these emails sort of like the best emails, and that gave the customers and the business really value. So we want people to open these emails and think it's amazing. We want them to be able to use these emails. We want people to keep opening these emails. So we had all these goals on, making like the best email possible out there, really. So if you can go on to the next slide, please, Alex. Yeah, so then I started asking the questions because, with our whole double diamond, like Alex said, it's something that we follow as well in Countdown. So I thought I'd start with the discovery phase. It sounded like a really big project. And I just wanted to know what made the customers tick. So if you move on to the next slide, please. yeah, I wanted to know so what customers wanted in their emails. I wanted to know what would make them sign up to their emails, or conversely, what would make them unsubscribe to emails, for example. I wanted to know what kind of emails they thought were cool, how they generally view their emails, and what they liked or what they hated, what they loved. And I also wanted to know what they thought of our current emails, because with our current emails, we've actually sort of won gold for them in a sort of data and analytics kind of thing as well. So I just want to know, it got gold, yes, but how did customers really take it, really? So there was a fair bit of talking to customers, thinking about what kind of questions to ask them about the emails. We got people in. We had some criteria about engagement rates with the emails from our customers, so people that open it versus people that don't open it, that kind of stuff. And also just putting this out there because Countdown has a pretty large customer base. So it was good in that sense for qualitative research, because then we got a large number of survey respondents. If I recall correctly, it's about 17,000, which is quite a bit of data. Yeah, so thanks to all those people that contributed as well when we're trying to find out all these things. So if you go on to the next slide, please. Yeah, as I started asking all those questions, talking to customers, forming the insights and all of that, what I found really interesting in this piece of research was that it actually raised more questions that got me to stop and think about it a bit more. So it answered questions, but then also, raised more questions. And the more that I listened to customers, the more I realized how emails fit into their everyday lives. So it wasn't really just about how cool the email was and how much we promised it was relevant to them, or how much we say, oh, it's based on your buying behavior, it's based on your specials and stuff like that. It wasn't just about the amazing subject lines that we put together. So, we've got customer feedback that said, yeah, if you put competitions or if you put alcohol as one quite memorable research sort of interview into the subject line, they'll definitely open it, they'll definitely read it. But it's not just about all of that as well. It was also around whether or not they had time to read it. It was also around whether they were looking in particular to buy, say, a bed sheet or a hammer or anything else that they were just thinking at that stage and point in time, and how it fit into their lives. Whether or not it made sense for them as an individual person to be looking at these emails at that time. So it's not easy to get people to click on emails as well, just because you have a lot of competitors, and you wake up one morning and you have 10, 20, 30 emails in your inbox, and it's really quick to just delete stuff nowadays with with your email apps and all that kind of stuff. So more questions definitely came up as the discovery process came along. Yeah, and Alex, if you can move on to the next slide. So yeah, I was starting to expand my thinking. So I had initially been focusing too much about making the emails themselves better. So I was thinking, was the header too big? Is there the right amount of products in this grid? Is the email too long? Stuff like that. Not to say that these weren't important questions, because they are, but sinking into it so immediately stopped me from taking a step back. If someone didn't open an email, the length of the email wouldn't bother them, because they wouldn't know how long the email was, because they haven't seen it. So why don't they open these emails is probably one of the root questions that came up as well. Is it because it's not their preferred mode of communication, for example? So all these questions that were coming up. So on the flip side as well, if they do open it, is it because it's something that they have time, to file away, to sit down and read later, instead of like an urgent push notification, for example? Sort of following that line of thinking, then, what works best for them? Do they prefer to scroll through Instagram and Facebook? Do they watch, like The Chase, like my neighbor, at 5 p.m. religiously and get their TV adverts through there as well? So there are many ways you can sort of communicate, right? There was that realization that it isn't the job of an email to try and force customers to interact with us on that one particular platform. It was one of the modes of communications that customers could use to interact with us on. So that brings me to this sort of like realization. It's about taking a step back, right? It's not getting too focused. It's not getting too focused on that one thing. So sometimes it's about the strategy and how everything sort of fits in there as well. So in this case, making sure emails are great for the customer is definitely important. Just to make sure that customers are getting value with that point of interaction if they choose to. And I think the key word here is sort of like if they choose to do it, they should have a good experience with that. But it's also about how do we make sure this value extends throughout everything the customer gets from us. So how do we make sure that no matter what channels the customer visits us on, so I was talking earlier about social media, TV, website, or even if you're just sitting, at a bus stop waiting for your bus, just with like the posters and stuff like that, all these various modes of communication. How do we make sure that this entire customer experience is seamless, is easy, is also consistent? How do we make sure that we have a connected experience? And I think connected experience is a kind of word that we sort of throw around a lot, but making sure that happens actually takes a lot of effort, and it takes, like stepping back and really looking at it as a whole as well. I just think that, customers don't really interact with things in isolation. It's not like they go with one channel and that's all they ever see. So it doesn't make sense that we think about them in isolation either. So it's about the whole big picture. So I realized that, yeah, it was right. It was quite important to take a step back and make sure we're doing the right thing and framing the work in the right way as well. Alex, if you can click on. Yep. And the second thing I got was sort of just be curious as well, right? And it's quite interesting because this is something that came up as the design team was talking quite recently as well, just being curious. So sometimes customers say one thing that gives you the aha moment. Sometimes it's a combination of things that customers have said to you. But I think it's also important to just keep an open mind and to constantly ask questions and be curious and sort of be willing to pivot or expand and contract as we need to. So why do the customers think this way? Why are we doing it this way? Why aren't we thinking of it another way? What can we do to make it better? So what is the root customer want or the need, for example? So there is no right or wrong questions. And again, sort of like building from what Alex said earlier, right? Every sort of question or every sort of research that we do is valuable in their own way, whether it's to expand your thinking or it's to correct an assumption. I've had the very good advice to just constantly be asking why. And sometimes it just really helps us shape our thinking and get to the heart of the issue. So if you feel like you've got it, just take a moment, step back and just ask why anyway, because, that might lead you to a new thing as well. And if we can go to the next one. Yeah, and the third one that I had for you, and sort of like the last one, and this is sort of really quickly wanting to make lives better with what we do doing using design. So I think it's a good thing to keep in mind just when we're doing design, and it's one of our goals as well at Countdown. So we want to look at how we make lives for Kiwis easier and better. And one way I think we can do that is to think about how we fit into their lives and not the other way around. So it's about how we can help make it easy for the customer so that they don't have to work for it. They don't have to work for a service. They don't have to work for information. They don't have to work through figuring out how to buy things on the website, or how to know what the special is this week or where to get the mailer, stuff like that. It's also about how we can make it meaningful and delightful for customers. So that spans across everything we do, even if it's email or the different channels and stuff like that. So remembering that, yes, we are designing for both the customer and the business, that it's not particularly about how one amazing piece of technology or idea is, because we know sometimes we can get lost in it. We find something new, we develop something new, and we forget about how whether or not it helps customers, if it can help make lives better. So I just, as I was writing this, I was just thinking about that sort of quote from Jurassic Park and paraphrasing from it. Don't be too preoccupied with whether or not you can, and fail to stop to think if you should. Ian was really good in that, by the way, so just saying. Just go on to that last slide then. Yeah, so just to summarize things up, taking a step back, being curious, wanting to make lives better. So these were sort of like the three things that my journey with Countdown and the last year have reminded me to do. And things that I definitely will try to keep in mind going forward as well. So just to close things out with my very quick sort of like rapid talking, just to leave you with a little message that I grabbed off the internet, and I feel that it works particularly well in sort of like these times as well. So, take a step back, give yourself a chance to breathe. It could really help you as well. And yeah, last slide is just a little thank you. So yeah, if you have any questions or if you want to reach out, more than happy to. And that's me.
Yay! That was wonderful. So, Bliss, I do have a question from Tango Tantrum.
Yep.
That sounds really interesting, Tango Tantrum. Um, how did you get hold of the customers who don't click on the emails?
Yeah, that's a really tough question because it's something that we did think about. We could have built the prettiest emails and stuff like that, but it's a problem if people don't click on it. So during our research, we posed customers questions as well, stuff like what would make you click on an email, and how could we get you to know more about these emails? Because a lot of times the customers assume that it's a marketing email, it's just going to be full of products. It's not going to be useful or helpful to me, right? So it was just about giving them the right headlines and also setting up expectations right from the front that this was actually a valuable email for them. Because a lot of times people will give you, like a 2-second chance right up front to see if this email is valuable for them. And if it's not, then, it just gets left behind. They might not unsubscribe, but they'll just not read it and just, automatically delete it, for example. Another customer we just asked, what would make you look at emails or make you aware of these emails? And they were like, well, you could look at other channels as well. Tell us through other channels. And that's sort of the thing that made me go, yeah, actually, you know what? You're right. We could look at other channels as well. So yeah, it is quite difficult to get people to click on it. But then again, getting people to click on it may or may not be sort of like the end goal rather than just, effective communication and stuff like that through the channels that they wish to. Yeah. Hope that answers it.
Yep. No, that was a great answer, I think, because I was just reminded. I think this past week, somebody on LinkedIn was saying something about, oh, it's time for the end of the year EDMs to ignore. So it kind of fit right in there. Like, how do you get people to click on those things?
Yeah, it's definitely tough.
I have to just say that a Live Since May Bass cover said awesome advice so far, and then dab. A dab. I thought that was pretty good. Hey, is there any more questions coming from our channel? If not, I just wanted to say if you like what you're seeing so far, don't forget to give us a like and also subscribe. I guess that's something I'm supposed to do as part of the marketing of our channel, but feel free to do that because I think this is an example of some great opportunities to learn and to invest in yourself. This is investing in your learning. With that said, if there's no more questions, I'm just going to move on to the next person if that's cool. So, any more questions before we do that? All right, then. We're just going to move on over to Michael Turley next. From graduate to designer. Take it away, Michael.
Cool. Thanks, guys. And thanks, Bliss and Alex, so far for your awesome talks. Super interesting. Even though I work beside you guys every day virtually, it's still interesting to hear your reflections. So thanks, guys. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Michael. I'm a user experience designer at Countdown. I actually joined Countdown through the grad program. So I joined as a graduate in 2019, went through the program, and then was lucky enough to move into the role of a UX designer. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So my reflection is not going to be on 2021 itself or on a particular piece of work, but it's more of a reflection on my journey from going from uni, not really knowing what to do next, to where I am now. So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so in my final year of uni, I was feeling pretty uneasy about what I was going to do next. So I graduated with a BCom, majoring in information systems and commercial law. And actually, when I first started my BCom, I was originally going to major in accounting, mostly because my dad is also an accountant and he was really strongly pushing me to do that. And I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So I said, okay, I'll do that. But after my first year of uni and even just taking the first couple of accounting papers, I knew that accounting wasn't for me. I didn't really like staring at numbers and financial statements all day. And I kind of knew that my strengths lied more somewhere else in the digital world. So I changed my major to information systems. I was kind of always into computers and technology, so I thought that would be a good choice. But even then, in Infosys, that's such a wide area as well. In the papers throughout uni, I learned about the Internet of Things, business analysis, information security, database management, all that kind of stuff. And although all of that was way more interesting than the accounting stuff I had started doing, there was still not really anything there that was standing out for me. There was only one little project and one Infosys paper that involved any kind of UI or UX. And what it was a UI design task where we had to create a flow for an app for a dentist appointment booking system. And I really liked that because I love being hands-on with the tools and kind of putting myself in the shoes of a customer. And I also like designing things and making things look pretty. So I really, really enjoyed that. But because that was such a small part of my 3-year degree, it was literally one project and one paper that took 1 or 2 weeks. I didn't really consider that as a career path. So I almost forgot about that project entirely. But as the end of my 3-year degree was coming up, I started looking at internships and grad programs where I'd be able to get a taste of how information systems worked in the real world. So I applied for a number of different internships and grad streams, and one of them was Countdown. So next slide, please. Yeah, so by some miracle, I managed to get into the 2019 grad program. They told us that there were over 1,000 applicants, and I somehow made it into the final 12. So no idea how that happened, but I got through. It was a really intense selection process, but I must have done something right because I got through to the end. So yeah, I was super happy I had got into something because I kind of just didn't really know what I was doing next. So at least now I had something that would set me up for the next at least year. And I really liked how the Countdown grad program was structured. So how it worked was it was a 1-year program, and you'd be in your chosen stream. So for me, I was in the digital stream, and that's where you'd spend a majority of your time. I think it was 9 months of the 12. But you'd also get a chance to try out all the other different areas of the business as well. So you could get like a well-rounded view and exposure to the business. And I learned so much in that first year. It was super different to everything I'd learned in uni, different to all the theory and writing you do. Just seeing it in practice was definitely something that hit home for me. So next slide, please. So this is a photo of my grad cohort during our rotations. So we got to go to like every single part of Countdown almost. So in this picture, we were at one of the distribution centers. So we could see it was basically a huge warehouse filled with products. And it was crazy seeing how many products and how many items they were moving all day and sending out to stores. And I remember on this particular day, we did an activity where we were stacking pallets, and I have no idea how these guys do it every day. It's like Tetris, getting them to fit right and put them on the truck. So that was a bit of fun. Next slide, please. And then this one, we also got to spend time at the meat plant. So yeah, I never really thought about how the meat packs get to the supermarket shelves, but seeing the actual process and all the different moving parts and how there's like automatic packaging machines and like robots that move around and move stuff, it was crazy. So another super interesting and fun experience. Next slide, please. It was great spending time in all the other areas of the business, but of course, I really loved my time at CDX, which is the digital department of Countdown. So I spent time with lots of different teams, but there were 2 particular rotations that really stood out for me. So the first one was my business analyst rotation with the mobile app team. And that was my first time working with a team or working with people that were delivering software. And I just thought that was so cool. The team was in the very early stages of the mobile app. So it was really cool for me to see people or UX designers working on sketches, turning them into prototypes, and then seeing working software on a phone. And like the whole dynamic of the work was talking about real world problems, having technical discussions with developers, looking at screens of apps. I just loved it. I loved getting involved in that kind of stuff. And I was starting to feel like, okay, this might be an area I want to work in. And it was also my first time experiencing agile ways of working. And I loved that kind of culture. It was super open, collaborative, lots of communication. And I loved it so much that I thought I had my heart set on being a business analyst because that's what that rotation was about. But now looking back, it wasn't really the business analyst part of it that I liked, but it was more the team and the nature of the work they were doing. That was what was really standing out for me. But the other rotation that I really liked, which I think is pretty obvious now, was my time with the user experience team at Countdown. Next slide, please. So I realized with my time in the UX team that the parts I found fun from uni, like that mobile app on the dentist appointment stuff, and then my time in the mobile app team, that kind of stuff was actually a full-time thing you could do if you worked in UX. So as a UX designer, you get to work on that kind of stuff every day. And I thought that was super cool. And I really loved the energy of the UX designers, the way they articulated problems, empathized with customers by looking at things from their perspective, rather than perhaps from the business side of things, looking at end-to-end experience, and actually engaging with customers to test ideas, validate ideas, test prototypes. They were hands-on with the they were hands-on and experts with the tools, so using the software to design stuff. And all of that combined, I just loved it. It was kind of perfectly what I wanted to do. I think all my skills kind of lied in those areas, and it was something I could see myself doing every day and not getting bored. So I felt really happy spending time with that team, and that kind of made me feel, okay, maybe this is what I want to do. Because yeah, for me personally, I want to get creative. I want to solve problems, collaborate with people, talk to customers, make cool stuff, make it look pretty, and then get the satisfaction of someone making use of your work. So yeah, it was perfect. So yeah, in this photo, this was during my grad rotation. This was my first ever time doing guerrilla testing. So I was pretty nervous just talking to random people in a coffee shop. This was right across the road from our office at Greenhouse, which isn't there anymore, but it was a Daily Bread cafe. And yeah, we were just testing something on the website, a super small thing. But I never realized how valuable it was to just approach someone and chat for not even 5 minutes, like 2-3 minutes. And you can get some really valuable findings that can really kind of change the path you're going on. So yeah, that was my first time doing like real customer interaction, and it made me realize how valuable it is to actually just have a chat with customers and see what they think. Next slide, please. So yeah, in my UX rotation, I got hands-on with the tools. So I started designing stuff. I started facilitating user testing, and I was really lucky to be able to contribute to some pretty big initiatives we delivered. Even as the grad, Countdown gave us the opportunity to get involved in all the real stuff, which I thought was super cool. And yeah, I learned so much in this rotation, and it was exactly the taste I needed for me to be able to choose a career path with confidence. And yeah, again, this was all thanks to the grad program with Countdown, and also the team of UX designers that I spent time with, because they were super awesome. They were all great mentors. They didn't hesitate to stop and explain something to me if I didn't understand. They'd always get me involved, happy to spend time with me to show me the ropes. So that was super valuable and important for me. And in this photo here, this was me synthesizing some notes from my very first user testing session. Again, I was very nervous, like getting someone into a research lab and just having a chat with them, knowing that there's like 20 people in a different room just a few meters away, just staring at what I was saying and what we were doing. So a bit nerve-wracking, but I think I got comfortable quite quickly, because during uni, I used to work in a retail store, and at that store, they made us hound customers all day to try and get sales. So I felt pretty comfortable talking to random strangers. So it was okay, but still very nervous for my first time. Next slide, please. Yeah, so as the grad program came to an end, I applied for a UX designer role at Countdown. I really felt that I found what I was looking for. I found my passion, and I didn't feel like I was just moving into a job just because I'd finished uni and needed to start working somewhere. I felt quite confident that this was the right field for me, and I knew I'd look forward to doing it every day. So I was really happy. And yeah, the team believed in me, and I was able to move from graduate to a UX designer. I remember the day I found out, I was so happy. I was like, oh, I'm set up for life now. But yeah, I was so excited, so happy about it. And to this day, I have absolutely zero regrets about all the decisions I made. Even during my time as a UX designer since then, I've come to love the profession even more as I've gained more experience and knowledge over the last couple of years. So yeah, I'm really happy with how that all kind of panned out for me. Next slide, please. So what have I learned on my journey so far? So that's kind of the story of how I got to where I am today. But I try to think of what were the key things I learned, and maybe something that would be interesting to share with you guys. So next slide, please. So my first one, it's kind of a weird one. It's sometimes it's okay not having a plan. So that might not be the best advice for everyone, but it's worked for me. So yeah, as I said earlier, my dad was really pushing me to do accounting and become a chartered accountant. And at that time at uni, all my friends seemed to have a plan set for after uni. They knew they'd go and join one of the big four through an internship or something and then become a chartered accountant. And in my friend group, I kind of felt like the odd one out, because I didn't really exactly know what I was going to do. And I was really wary that I didn't want to get into something that I didn't like. So I kind of just went with the flow. I didn't really lock myself into anything. I just waited to see what would happen. And I was very, very fortunate and lucky to get the opportunities I did, especially with the grad program. But I feel like if I had set myself a plan without really knowing and followed it, I probably wouldn't be in the position I am today and would probably be doing something I don't really like. So for me anyway, I find that sometimes it's okay to just see where things take you. And if you're not happy, just be patient. And yeah, I find that sometimes it's better and easier to be adaptable and see what happens rather than plan your next exact moves for the future. So yeah. Next slide, please. Yeah, get involved in as much as you can. So during my time in the grad program, especially during the UX rotation, I tried to get involved and offered to help out in as many things as I could. And by doing that, I could experience stuff, learn new things, and create lots of relationships while still being a graduate. And looking back, I think it would have been quite easy for me to just stay in my shell and just stick to what had been planned out for me in this grad timetable that they'd given us. But I tried quite hard to push myself out of my comfort zone, get involved, get into user testing, talk to customers, all that kind of stuff. Not just to improve my skills and my confidence, but also for me to help get a better understanding of what I do like and what I don't like. So yeah, that's my second learning. Get involved in as much as you can. You never know what kind of opportunities you might create or things you might learn about yourself from just offering and getting involved and stuff. So yeah. And then next slide. Yeah, trust your instincts and back yourself. So when I joined Countdown, I was a new person to the business. I had absolutely zero experience. I'd come straight from uni. And I'd find that I was really hesitant to voice my opinion or ideas because I thought I'd be wrong. I thought I'd maybe perhaps embarrass myself if I said something dumb. I felt that I didn't have the knowledge or experience to have any kind of meaningful input into ideas and discussions. So I'd kind of just stay silent and absorb everything around me. But I had all these ideas, but I was just too scared to say anything. But as I settled in and I spent more time with the teams that I was working with, I sometimes saw that actually some people did have the same ideas as me or were thinking the same thing. Or if someone did say something that no one agreed with, it was no biggie. They were just appreciative that there was input into the discussion, and then they were able to move on quite quickly. So after that, I realized, stuff it. I'm just going to say my ideas and trust in myself and in my ability. And as I kind of had started having that mindset, I became more confident. And I realized that I actually can have some input into these discussions. I just need to say what I'm thinking. If it's wrong, who cares? But sometimes I just need to kind of back myself and go for it. And while I was doing that, and while I became more confident, it also kind of reaffirmed to me that, okay, I think this area of UX is the right thing for me. So yeah, I think backing myself, and by backing myself, I was able to grow and gain confidence a lot faster than if I just stayed silent. So yeah, that's my last learning. Trust your instincts and back yourself. Next slide, please, Alex. But yeah, that wraps up my journey. So thanks everyone for listening to my reflection. Hopefully you guys found it interesting and perhaps learned something. But yeah, happy for any questions.
Oh, Michael, thank you so much for sharing your reflection. There's so much about it that I wanted to unpack, mostly because, um, I think that what you express really sung to my soul, where you feel really confident and you feel really good that you made the choice to go UX after your journey through university and the pressures you may have felt from family, from society to do a certain thing because that was, that meritocracy bit. But I'm also so pleased to hear that Countdown offers such a great program, a graduate program for you to explore where you fit in and where you can try things out to get to find your where you want to be and how you want to contribute to the overall growth of their company, but also to yourself. And it's just heartwarming. It's always hard for um, I don't know how many times that I work with young people or work with people, especially right out of university, where they don't have that support or they don't have that foundation in which to travel through and see what fits for them. But I can definitely tell you, and maybe it's because I just love what I do, is that you will always love this part of your work. You will always love um, reaching out to people and talking to them, and you reminded me of that in your story, and I really super appreciate it, and thank you for that. But now I'm going to ask you some questions from people, okay?
Cool.
Alrighty. So there's a couple that are from the same. It's Jane Williams and Mark B. They want to ask about the software tools that you were using. Um, did you have to learn any graphic design software? And how was that transition, from a non-design background into UX? Was that an issue? And I think that question comes up quite a bit about what people think UX designers should do. So.
Yeah. So yeah, even though I studied a BCom, which didn't really have much design in it at all, only that one little UX UI project, which was barely anything. In my own spare time and as a hobby, I was always into, as I said, technology and computers. I did lots of video editing. I was doing photography, so I knew how to use Photoshop. So I felt like I was already quite proficient with using tools, and I was quite quick at picking up software. So moving into the UX team at Countdown, even though I didn't have much proper training as such, or I had done much study in that area, as I started getting into the tools, I kind of just started picking it up, not only from the people around me, but from me just practicing. And even in my own time, I would do research and study a bit up myself, as I knew that I was lacking in some areas. So I think it was a mix of me having a little bit of background skills and experience with these kinds of tools and software. I was able to gel and learn quite quickly. I think that answers one part of your question.
Mhm.
What was the other one? Sorry.
What software tools are you currently using and what for?
Yes. So at Countdown, we use Sketch. I've had a little bit of experience with other tools, but they all seem to work quite similar, same shortcuts, functions, all that. So we use Sketch. And then for prototyping, we use UXPin.
Okay, fair enough. Let's see what other questions we have here. Jade, I see your question. I think I'm going to save that one for all of them because that seems like a nice question for everybody. Um, Cassia says, have you been able to apply any of your knowledge or thinking from your BCom to your UX practice? Good question.
That is a really good question. And a lot of people ask me that, like my friends, because I tell them what I do now. And they said, I thought you did a BCom. How are you doing UX design? And to be completely honest, if I think really hard, I can't really think of any specific things in my BCom that I'm applying to UX. I think it was more about, actually, now that I think of it, in my BCom, I did lots of report writing and was put in lots of situations where I needed to articulate myself quite well. So I think I'm relying on some of those skills I built up during uni. I'm applying them in the UX field. But in terms of specific learnings or things we were taught, I can't really think of too much that was transferable to UX. So I think UX was uni more battle-handed me when it came to meeting deadlines and getting through lots of work, context switching, juggling lots of things at once. I think those were the main skills I learned. But yeah, in terms of the BCom itself, I'm not sure what actually transferred to the UX. So yeah.
Well, I actually think that's great. You actually came from that background because I think UX is a nice intersection between business and user, right? You find that sweet spot in the middle to get, to get users to engage with the business, but also to get business to support the user's needs. So I think that's a really great background to float into the UX film. That's wonderful. Moving on, Walt, I'm going to save your question again with Jade's for all of the Countdown UX team because it seems pretty applicable. But let's move on to our next presenter, Shira, who I have to say was helping worked with me collaboratively to create this event and to be able to share this with you folks. So let's go ahead and take it to the next person, Miss Shira.
Thank you, Nani. Alex, if it's okay, I'll be happy to share my slides from here. Thank you. Okay. Alrighty.
Shira, can you say your whole name for me, please? Like you have all the names
In the
all
world.
together.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my last name before I met my partner is Natovich. It's a Polish name. And my second name is Ashkenazi, and that's my partner's last name. When I
Oh,
got married, I'm like, oh, why should I get rid of mine? That's who I am. I just
uh,
find myself,
I think that's
unfortunately,
very
with a
clever.
golden name.
With me and my
Well, it's,
husband, because his name is like three syllables longer than mine. I actually made a portmanteau and it's Palquist,
oh,
but
wow.
it's only works on Facebook. But I
Yeah.
I understand the whole thing about the namings within your partners. I think it's fantastic. I love your name.
Thank you. It's hard to fill out forms, I have to say. Sometimes it's just worth it. Cool. So before I start, just wanted to say thank you for the UX Auckland community for being here with us, and thank you, Nani, and the team to support us with this meetup. Special thanks to Alex, Bliss, and Michael for sharing their stories. Michael, that was one inspiring piece of story, and I didn't know all those stuff about you. So I'm
Yeah.
happy we got those opportunities, even though we worked together for 2 years now. And very similar to Michael, I also wanted to share my reflection on my 2 years at Countdown. And it's also kind of a user experience story and journey about my experience. So, kia ora, everyone, and thank you for coming. And just wanted to share my story with you. So, my name is Shira. I'm a UX researcher and designer here at CDX. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a mom of 2 sweet little kiddos. And today I decided to share my very personal story with you because I believe that we all experience challenges in life and in our professional lives as well. And because I believe that when you experience those challenges and you share them, it normalizes them. And if I'm normal, it means I'm not alone. And that's got to be the reason to share my personal story with you. So just like our customers, sometimes we're on a happy path and sometimes we face very big challenges. And just like our users, we just have to move on. So who am I? Sorry. If you ask me who I am, I would probably say I'm doing UX, but just actually like all of you, I'm also an X something. So I'm an ex graphic designer, ex brand and exhibition designer, ex lecturer, ex freelancer, ex blogger, ex doula postpartum, ex UI designer, ex studio leader, and ex CX designer. And the reason why I have all these X's in my bio is because when I was young, my mom in this photo told me, just try, give it a shot. What's the worst that can happen? If you don't try, you don't give it a shot. It's 100%, it's a no. But if you try and you give it a shot, then the no drops to 50%. That allows 50% space for a yes. So I gave it a shot. And daring made me who I am today. And that's the reflection I'd like to share with you today. So I arrived to New Zealand from a very, very tiny and faraway country called Israel about 4 years ago, not knowing, well, anyone or nothing in this beautiful country. With a background of UX and UI, I started looking for a job in the CX customer experience space because I needed something of a change from UX. And I started attending meetups just like this one, making connections and inviting people to have coffee with me, just to realize how nice they were and how naive and junior I am. 100% of the people I approached agreed to meet me for coffee. And that was only because when I shared my story with them about immigrating and wanting to shift to CX, I was very genuine and open, and that's I think was the reason why they decided to catch up with me. So what's the worst that can happen when you're open and vulnerable? Nothing. Being open and vulnerable makes you human, just like Michael said. He was just asking his questions, and we're like, if we disagree, it's totally okay. And being open and vulnerable makes you human. And if you're human, then it's a great way to make a connection, be part of a community, and eventually get a job. And by the way, that's how I met Alex, and this is why I'm here today with you guys. So as I mentioned before, I decided to shift from UX to CX when I arrived to New Zealand, as CX was something I was very interested in, and I was willing to go back, be in a junior position again from team leader, so that I can learn. And one day, a friend, Sarah Clearwater, which leads the CX collective, tagged me in a PricewaterhouseCoopers post, PwC. They were looking to hire CX designers. One thing led to another, and after 5 exhausting interviews, I got a job as a manager of CX in one of the big 4. Let me just make sure we're on the same page here. A new country, a first job, it's a new field, it's first time for me working in English in my life, and be a manager.
Wow.
So what's the worst that can happen when you dare to step out of your comfort zone? Well, in my case, absolutely everything that can go wrong did go wrong. Accepting the role of a CX manager at PwC with my experience was the biggest mistake I've had in my life. I didn't know what I was doing. I felt like a complete disaster and a walking mistake. I obviously didn't deliver, and it was definitely the worst mistake I had taken. And then I understood that I just had to let it go. So not being able to deliver the expectations of a CX manager led me to a horrible and exhausting period of 7 months. In those hard 7 months, I lost a lot of weight, and I also lost a lot of my confidence and self-esteem. I felt sick, I had experienced panic attacks, and I didn't even learn that much because I was struggling to survive another day. The decision to resign was hard, but I didn't see another option. I understood that it wasn't the right place for me, and I needed to own it and move on. Well, actually, I needed to move back to my home, UX. So what's the worst that can happen when you understand you need to let go? At this stage, I thought that everything that could go wrong did go wrong, and everything is going to be bad, and my future is black. I wouldn't be able to find another job in New Zealand. My self-esteem was really, really bad. And I was very, very in the unknown zone of my life. But staying there wasn't an option as well. So I owned it. I reached out to the community, you guys, and I met a lot of people who are very keen to help me out. I asked around a lot, and I was looking for a place which is considered a good place to do UX at. And then I got a hold of CDX. So I approached Elena after meeting with Alex, and we had some coffee. One interview led to another, and I started working at CDX. But then I realized that the problem happened again. I was recruited as a senior UX designer, and a senior UX designer, I was definitely not. And not being able to deliver again led me to those horrible experiences again, panic attacks. I was depressed. I was a bad mom for my kids, and I was actually surviving another day at a time again. But that's when I decided that this is not the way to go. This time, I wanted to fix it. I wanted to stay. I wanted to learn. I wanted to grow. I love the team. As you can see, you understand why. I love the culture at CDX, and I love the product. And I was willing to fight, to do anything it takes to stay, learn, and grow. Even if it means demoting myself. And so I did. So what's the worst that can happen when you demote yourself? Well, it's like this horrible and fun combination of a huge relief, but also a lower salary, which makes me feel really good about myself. So I owned it, and I didn't give up. And now I'm a UX designer, and I'm loving it. But to be able to own it, I needed to learn. And to be able to learn, I needed to ask for help. So I got a babysitter to cover for my 2 days of pickup duties. And I asked the team at Countdown to ask me, to tell me and teach me everything I know today. The team at Countdown taught me everything I know today about UX. I asked a lot of questions, And I asked to participate in every single piece of work that I could help in, just like Michael did. I kind of pushed myself into every research and pushed myself into every observation room just so that I can learn the practice. Because I knew that one day I will be the one teaching others and I will be the one to give back. So, what's the worst that can happen when you want to ask for help? Well, maybe it's sometimes people would say no, but maybe they will also say yes. I felt really bad for taking a lot of people's time, but I also knew it was temporary. And I knew that I'm doing that so I can be the one helping others in the future. And I knew that there is no other way. I am not giving up on this one. I have to nail it. So I did. And today I'm a completely different person. I'm a confident researcher and designer. I help and teach others as much as I can with different platforms in Israel and in New Zealand. And I am positive that the team knows that I'm always there for them to pick up on everything they need to help, support, and guide just to give back. I always thought that leaving Israel and moving to New Zealand was the hardest decision I had to make, but actually, leaving Aotearoa to move back to Israel is the hardest. This is by far the hardest decision we had to take as a family. We decided that it's best for us to move back home to be with our whānau, and our flight is booked for February 2022. So, when you're in a point in life where you need to think of your next steps, think about your yesterday. What do you want to change? Think about your today. What is currently not working well and you want to change it? And think about the worst that can happen for you to own it and make your tomorrow better. You might get a yes and succeed. You might get a no and rule out something that just wasn't right for you today. You can always go back to what you did before, distill your dreams, arrange your thoughts, and try again. If you zoom out, you'll see that all of these dots are just dots in your bigger picture journey map of your life or your career. But whatever you do, don't stop trying because you'll never know. Maybe you'll get a yes. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh my God, everybody. Do the clapping of the hands and throw it into the emojis. Oh, Shira, thank you so much for sharing your truth. And I want you to know you're not alone. I know there's a lot of people that are here, including me, who have walked in your shoes, who've had your feelings. I have nothing but amazing respect for you, lady. I definitely want to have coffee before February 22nd.
I'm here. Let's do it, but
But
not on the bus, eh?
but not no, I say my best for Alex.
For Alex.
Trust it. It's our show. Um no, I listen, I know that feeling. I've been in it. It's one of the reasons why I kind of poured myself into UXA and trying to make it better and to share what I know with the community and to get people like you to share your mana, as I like to call it, with the community. This is so heartwarming, and I have such respect for Countdown. For offering a situation for people to step into these roles that helps them grow. That's just profoundly wonderful to see that in an enterprise business. It's a challenging thing to be in an enterprise business, and uh, listening to the four of you guys talk, I have nothing but admiration and well, for you guys always, but to be able to be in an enterprise situation that helps you reach your best life, helps you to learn, to grow, and as Michael was pointing out, to do what you love, because this is a lifetime commitment, doing this type of work. I just am blown away. So, and I
Same.
know I'm not the only one crying. So, thank you, Janice Chan. I'm the same way. Is there any more questions before we move on for Shira? I think her story was amazing. If not, I'm just going to open it up to a couple of questions. Oh, got a question. Why didn't your UX experience in Israel initially translate well into your UX role at Countdown?
That is such a good question. Thanks for asking. So 5 years ago, because I took like a year gap, the practice that I thought I was doing called UX was actually doing great UI with a teeny weeny of wireframing and research. At the moment, my role is completely the opposite. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of collaborative thinking. We do a lot of design thinking. We do a lot of research. We do a lot of user testing. Yes, we also design the stuff, but there is a lot to it. There's lots of other data relying and kind of guiding us for the design. And when I came to Countdown, I realized that, oh my God, how did I ever? And to be honest, I still think about it. So before I moved to New Zealand, one of my biggest achievements was to design a medical health supporting app for people to understand what are their medical records and stuff. And 1 out of 3 people in Israel, because there are 3 companies who do that, 1 out of 3 people in Israel are using that app that I designed back then in my kitchen, just relying on inspiration, not relying on research. I'm speechless with the work I did. This app works and it's okay, but it was totally a wrong process to do. It was waterfall and it wasn't involving customers. The research I've done was with people in the office. I'm embarrassed to even say that. So Countdown was such a UX school for me. And that's why I wasn't ready. I was really good on the tools. I was really good on wireframing and designing, but nothing from what I do now is something that I did back then.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
All right. Okay, I have a three questions, and then I'll close this up. We're almost time. This is actually open to all of you. If Alex, if you don't mind, stop sharing your prezzo.
Sorry, it's mine. It's mine.
Oh, okay, Shira. Then everybody can see everybody, if that's great. So the 3 questions I have so far, one is from Tango Tantrum, which I just love that name. How did you get a hold of customers who didn't click on the email? So I think this has to do with you, Bliss. It was a follow-up to your segment of your lightning talk.
Yeah. I think I might have mentioned this earlier as well. It's just looking at it as a whole and just thinking about emails not being, your sole channel. And if they don't click on emails, I think that's perfectly fine as well. It's just about what do they choose to interact with you on, and how you can best make use of those other platforms to communicate that sort of consistent messaging to your customers as well. So I wouldn't get too fixated on one particular one. If the customers choose not to respond to that, that's okay. Let's look at some other ways to do it as well.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. I'll move on to the next question. This is from Jade Lim. I guess this is to anybody. How do you work with Countdown's parent company, Woolies?
Who wants to take this one?
I can take it, and then you start, Alex. You continue, Alex, because
Okay,
you have more experience than me. So usually within the discover stage of the Double Diamond, one of the things that we would do would be an activity planning, in which we would sit around with the team or the squad or whoever is involved and just understand what are the things we need to do to better understand the problem space and to be able to solve it. Some of the stuff would usually be approach Woolies and see what have they done in the past, if they have current research, if they've done anything that can be relevant for us, we can benefit. And that we probably want to approach. Another one would be just to look at what they do and then reach out to the UX team over there, which is a huge team. And we can always feel free to reach out to them and say, okay, you have this thing now on your website. Do you monitor it? If so, could you send us some data so we can see? But obviously, it's always important to remember that our customers are not their customers. There's a change in the way they behave. For example, one of the researches on a specific element I did, I showed customers a little bit of options, and I showed them the Woolies option, and they didn't like it for some reason. So we decided not to go with it. That's my end. Alex?
Yeah, just to build on that, I think I agree with everything you just said. We For the most part, most of our digital stuff is all kind of custom made for the New Zealand market. So we do our own research, we do our own design process and things like that. But we do check in with those guys and just learn as much as we can from them. And we do our own research as well on our stuff with our customers. And sometimes they'll reach out to us as well and see what we're doing for things that we've done that they haven't done as well. We're a little bit smaller and sometimes can be a little bit more nimble. They're a bit bigger and can kind of spend a bit more time on things sometimes. So it kind of works both ways.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. And last question I have is from Walter Lim, and I'm just, hey Walt, do you want to just ask your question?
Yeah, sure. I guess I tried to order groceries this morning and I noticed that a lot of stuff was missing. How's the design team responding to the supply chain crunch that's facing the world at the moment?
Yeah, I mean, out of stocks and missing items are always kind of probably the biggest pain point with online shopping. Obviously we do our best to give everyone what they order, every time they shop and put a lot of effort into that. But at the moment, the supply chain is just a little bit clogged up from last week, and they're playing a little bit of catch up. So hopefully in the next few days it'll catch back up, because we know that missing items out of stock, are really something we want to avoid as much as we can.
And I can add on this one as well.
Go for it.
Just a little thing that we try to make sure that we communicate with our customers in the channels that they choose to shop with us. So if you go online and you shop with us, either through the app, mobile web, or desktop, you will always have this notification at the top in the blue color that kind of explains we're experiencing difficulties or we are missing slots because of COVID and so on. It might not be the best UI and it might shrink and kind of push all our content to the bottom, and we are aware of that and working on that. But it's the best way we found. If you're clear and if you're communicating with your customers, then maybe they'll be forgiving. And at least they will be in the known that we know those issues are erupting and we are working on them.
All righty. Okay. All I can say from Nani is grow your own vegetables. There you go. There is a couple more questions. I'm going to pick one or two, and then I'm going to do my own reflection. Let me see. How many people do you have in your UX team?
Who wants to take this?
Now.
Do you want me to? I think we have about I don't know, 7 or 8 maybe. Do you guys know?
I think the count is 9 currently.
And we are
wow.
And we are looking to expand our team as well at the
9.
moment. So
that's fantastic. No, I think that's great. You have that many people. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, we try to get our teams and our team largely embedded with our different tribes and squads, and we have quite a distributed UX team, and we think that keeps everyone closer to the customer. So yeah.
And I think there's also like 4 or 5 openings at the moment, and Jade, our team leader, is looking for them in the market. So if you're interested, just LinkedIn us or whatever, and we'll help you. Yeah. Awesome place.
And obviously any questions anyone has as well, very happy to answer any questions offline later on. Just hit any of us up on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to go ahead and just take over a wee bit to finish out, because we are coming to the end of this session. So I just want to, I'm just taking over. Sorry, guys. Let me share my screen. So, first of all, thank you, Alex, Michael, Shira, and Bliss for doing this for us. What a great talk. I think a lot of people here in Aotearoa, here in Auckland for sure, are really curious about your team and curious what you've been doing at Countdown. And thank you for sharing what you did, because I think it was just it's just lovely to have a bit of real world insight about how people do work in this space for in a company like Countdown, and we see it every week, right? We see it every time we go shopping. So I want to thank you for that. I'm just going to come back to UXA and uh, talk about just us a little bit. Um, Mostly that this is kind of our goal, is that we say that no designer grows alone, and that we have certain values of how we like to engage our community. And I really appreciate you guys for sharing your mana and staying connected with us, because I think it's been really good for us to get your wisdom and get your knowledge. So thank you so much for that. And I just wanted to point out that this is the end. This is kind of the last big one for the year. But what an amazing year we had! We've had people from, Countdown, but also from our with Alistair and Ellen. Also, Bear gave a great talk when he had joined Zero, and also we did research ops with Sarah and Laura. And in the middle of that, we even got a little bit of a workshop to be able to use Figma um, better. I'm a Figma head, I will have to say. And so I really do appreciate all you creative souls who shared your mana, your knowledge, and your wisdom with us this past year. It's made us a much better organization, a much better group. And I really, really appreciate everything that you've done to share that. And I also want to point out, as I should, thank you for any of the organizations that have support our community through financial aid. Financial mana, and that's Purple Shirt, Long Room, and Grid Auckland, but also Trade Me was supporting us with some of our face-to-face endeavors, and we really appreciate that, because uh, without the help from these people, I don't know how we would have kept this going under COVID, and under all the things that are going on. With that said, I also want to thank with much gratitude some of the people that support this organization, and that's like Michael Zito, Anna Hahn, Stephanie Calling, Walter Lim, and Valentina Ryder. And these are people who volunteer their time and mana all the time in big and small ways, to so we can create things for to support our design industry, to just support Auckland in that way. And it's really important that we do that. And I just want to recognize these beautiful people who do that. And I really, really, really appreciate everything that they do. So thumbs up for our lovely people there. And if you want to find anything more, there you go. It's UX Auckland. That's how you can find more information on our link tree. With that said, though, we're coming to an end, and things will probably change because COVID has changed us. Um, we we we're going to take our break as we normally do during the summer, and see what's going on for next year. But I would expect that you will see more of these events virtually, simply because it's a little easier, it's a little bit safer, it's a little bit of all those other things. And I don't know when we will be able to do our networking events. I'm just keeping that one up in the air. Simply because it's just a very, this it's just strange right now. And we just have to go with the flow and do our best. But I'm looking for you guys to have a great holiday, and also reach out to us sometime over the summer so we can start this all over again in our next season. I'm looking for other types of groups to come and talk about some really cool stuff that we're doing. Then, as I will say in Hawaiian, because I am Hawaiian, mahalo a hui hokako, until we meet again. So with that, that is the end of our thing, and I wish you all the best. Have a wonderful holiday, safe travels, um, and everything that goes on when the holiday season. It's wonderful that all over the world in all different ways we celebrate this time of the year, and I really appreciate that. With that said, goodbye, audience. Have a good life. Enjoy it, and all you people that are on, stay in the meeting
Thanks,
until.
everyone.
So say goodbye, everybody.
Bye.